first and second law of thermodynamics with respect to turbo machines. Okay, this should be our topic. See, before we get into that, let's look at what are the types of energies we are supposed to deal with actually. So we have what is called as the flow energy. I think we also call it as the pressure energy, and it is given by the equation, the product of pressure into volume, or it can be pressure by density. Okay, because we have the volume is a reciprocal of your density. And we have another form of energy which is called as the kinetic energy, which is given by mathematically V of energy, V square by 2. Okay. Then we have the third form of energy, which is mainly because of the high turbo machine. That's your the potential energy, which is Zg. Okay. So where Z is the height and your G is the acceleration due to gravity. The fourth one, which is not used in all the machines, we try to see that enthalpy is accounted for it. Okay. Now, the same energy, if I try to write in terms of head, that means in terms of head. Okay. What is it actually if here? Head. So these are the types of energy, some kind of energy interaction. Either heat can go in or heat can come out of that particular control volume. Fine, control volume is a system. That's what I'm calling it as. It's a system. Now at the same time, there can be work interaction also. Work can be done on the system or work can be done by the system. So I do have the medium interaction, that is your fluid can go into the system and your fluid can come out of the system. So it becomes. Now when I speak of heat interaction, work interaction, suppose my Q is equal to 0. So Q is equal to 0 means I don't have any heat interaction. It becomes a pure adiabatic system. When Q is not equal to 0, it is a non-adiabatic system. It can be any other kind of a system. What for the work actually? Work can be negative absorbing machine, compressor, whatever it may be. Work is positive means it's a turbine. So when you speak of this particular thing, the main absolute temperature for a reversible process is defined as a property and given a name called as entropy. Now, when this delta Q is equal to 0, what will happen? So when my delta Q is equal to 0, my ds for a reversible, see when my delta Q is equal to 0, ds is equal to 0. So for all other systems where your delta Q is not equal to 0, my entropy exists. Those are called as irreversible systems where entropy of that particular system keeps increasing. Fine. When I speak of first law of thermodynamics, what comes to our mind is actually it is your steady flow energy equation. Okay, the steady flow energy equation is given by what are the things which exist in the steady flow energy system? I do have the quantities such as heat interaction, that is your Q dot. Then I do have the internal energy. If I take, for example, 1 is the inlet, 2 is the outlet, or I can call it as I and out, whatever it may be. Then have your pressure volume product, which is your flow energy. Then I have my kinetic energy. It is V1 square by 2 plus your Z1 into G. So this is my energy available at the inlet or whatever it may be. So similarly, I have to balance it at the outlet. So this can be m dot into U22 is outlet. So this becomes P2 V2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G. Then I do have the work quantity. Either work, it depends whether the work is done by the system or we'll add it, whether it is negative or positive, whatever it may be. Now, what is this quantity? This quantity, this is my enthalpy H1, this is my enthalpy at the 2. So I can write the same thing. So for any adiabatic system, if my Q is equal to 0, most of my turbo machines heat interaction is negligible. So for these conditions, I can write the equation as m dot into H1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G is equal to m dot into H2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your work done. Or I can write the same equation, I can write and modify in terms of work done. It's equal to m dot into H1 minus H2 plus V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus Z1 minus Z2 into G. So what is it actually? This is the quantity mainly due to change. This is mainly due to the kinetic energy change, and this is mainly due to potential change. Your mass flow rate, so this has a unit of joules per second or in terms of watts. So when I speak of a turbo machine, these are energies existing. Suppose any given condition, so if my change in my kinetic energy, that is your delta Ke and your delta potential energy or negative. In that case, what will happen is W. So first condition, your W is actually just a mass flow rate into difference of your enthalpy. That is your, we can call it as m dot into delta H. So almost all compressible machines. What happens? So for if I have an incompressible flow machines, for incompressible flow machines. So what I have actually, your rho is constant. Never ever tell that rho is equal to rho is changing or rho remains same. What do you mean by it actually? Rho changes are negligible. The meaning is changes are negligible. My density changes when the fluid is flowing in a turbo machine is negligible. That's the meaning of it. Okay. When the density changes are negligible, what I call it as U1 is equal to U2. That is your delta U. What is it actually? It is your velocity component. Let's speak of this one, internal energy. Let's speak of Q1 component. I don't have Q component. It will be only mass flow rate into P1 V1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G is equal to mass flow rate into P2 V2 plus your V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your work done. Okay. Now, can I simplify the same thing? See, yes. So what I will do actually, I can write it as mass flow rate into P1 by rho 1 plus V1 square by 2 plus Z1 into G is equal to mass flow rate into P2 by rho 2 plus V2 square by 2 plus Z2 into G plus your work done W. So all the things I'll try to push to the one side, that is so that I can get an expression for your W. So what will be your expression for W? It is m dot into, so m dot into P1 minus P2 by rho. Why? Because rho 1 is equal to rho 2 is equal to rho. It's a constant. Then plus V1 square minus V2 square by 2. This is mainly because of the kinetic energy, plus G into Z1 minus Z2. So the unit will be once again joules per second or watts. So I have two expressions. One in terms of, see, either same expression, I can take rho outside, so that what will happen, this will become m dot into P1 minus P2 plus rho into V1 square as V2 square by 2 plus G into rho into G into Z1 minus Z2. So I can multiply by rho towards, so that P1 minus P2 by rho gets simply cancelled out. I think some of the books have that equation. Why they do it actually, I will tell you. So if I multiply by, if they multiply by rho throughout, yes, what will happen in the, so your numerator, what will happen, this will be P1 minus P2 plus rho into V1 square minus V2 square by 2 plus rho into G into Z1 minus Z2. So this will be the expression. But now, when I try to define the stagnation pressure, so by definition, the stagnation pressure or the total pressure, which we call stagnation total pressure, P naught is equal to your static pressure plus rho into V square by 2. So what will happen? Now if I try to compare here these two expressions, P1 minus P2 plus rho into V1 square by 2, what I can write actually? I can write W dot is equal to m dot into P1 plus rho into V1 square by 2, one expression, fine, minus, I can write P2 plus rho into V2 square by 2, fine, yeah, plus rho into Z1 minus Z2. So what I can write? This I can write it as P01. This I can write it as P02. Those are your stagnation pressures. I can write it as, for an incompressible fluid, it is m dot into P01 minus P02 plus rho G into Z1 minus Z2. So this will be the expression. Suppose my your potential energy, if my potential energy is equal to 0, what will happen? Your work done is equal to m dot into P01 minus P02. So this will be my expression. So when you look at for a compressible fluid, what was the expression we had? We had in terms of enthalpy m dot into h1 minus h2 plus v1 square minus v2 square by 2 plus g into z1 minus z2. Or it was in terms of enthalpies. For a compressible fluid, it was, if kinetic energy and potential are negligible, it was m dot into change in enthalpy. Here, in case of incompressible fluid, it is m dot into mass flow rate into change in my stagnation pressure. So this will be delta P naught. That's the difference. So if I know my potential stagnation pressure difference, I'll be able to calculate my work done for an incompressible fluid machines. If I know my change in enthalpy for a given machine, I can easily calculate the work done in case of your compressible flow machines. So what are the incompressible flow machines? What we have, where the density, say for example, I have hydraulic turbo machines or hydraulic turbines. maybe your Falcon wheel or Francis turbine, all that, they all fall into category of your hydroturbo machines or incompressible flow machines. What are the compressible flow machines? All your compressors, fans, blower and all, where the density variations I could see, I can clearly tell that those fall into category of your machines with compressible flow in nature. This is about the first law of thermodynamics. Say first law of thermodynamics for a turbo machine means I'm going to take the steady flow energy equation, apply and try to get the expression for work done, because turbo machine is a work absorbing or a work producing machine. So if it is a work absorbing machine, what will happen? It would have been P02 minus P01. So what's happened? There is a gain in my pressure, stagnation pressure in case of incompressible flow machines. There is a gain in the your enthalpy or whatever it may in case of a compressor, in case of a compressible flow machines or incompressible flow machines stagnation machine. So whenever there is a change in increase in the energies or there is a drop in the energy. So with that in concept or with that as the context for us, I will try to change the modify the expressions. You got it? Now let's go and look at the second law of thermodynamics. Application of second law of thermodynamics with respect to turbo machines. Okay. Now, whenever we speak of second law of thermodynamics, the one thing that comes to our mind is the efficiency. What is this efficiency? Efficiency is nothing but output by input. Okay, what is your output? Most of the machines, what we speak of actually, it is your work done, and what we are supplying is usually in case of an all your thermal machines, it is the heat input. Okay, this is one thing. Second, maybe second of thermodynamics. The second quantity what that comes to our mind is the entropy. That is ds, change in entropy, which is del Q by T under reversible conditions. And the third quantity which we have studied if with respect to our maybe second of thermodynamics is the absolute temperature. Absolute temperature, which is capital T. So these three things are related to your second law of thermodynamics. Okay. Why this is so important for us? See, in case of first law, if I take only the first law of thermodynamics, if I take what I will do, I am not going to consider any losses. So what I will do, I will speak of all ideal conditions. That means I am able to convert all my heat to work. All my heat to work and work to heat. So that's what your first law of thermodynamics speak of. But when I speak of second law of thermodynamics, what I speak actually, if I take the Kelvin-Planck statement, it clearly indicates that no emission is 100% efficient. If I speak of Clausius statement, I can clearly tell that without doing any work, actually, I won't be able to absorb the energy from a low temperature or source or sink. So from sink, I can't put it at a high temperature, some kind of a maybe a region, a source. I can't do that actually. So using that, when that's a principle, what is thing which comes to our mind is the losses. So here losses are considered in case of second law, but in case of first law, I am not considering any losses at all. So when I speak of losses in case of a turbo machine, so there are different types of losses. So we have the losses in your turbo machine. That means losses in turbo machines. If I speak of losses in turbo machine, let us take the first one is your internal losses. Okay, what are these internal losses? Say I have, for example, this is your turbo machine wheel or something. The fluid vein or something, the fluid is flowing in this direction. So the fluid will come like this. But there can be formation of some kind of vortices behind your, maybe in the vein itself. So what this will do actually, they will take away the energy, take away the energy. Instead of the fluid moving forward, they will try to rotate there itself because of the small delta P within your turbo machine, I'm calling. Within the vein spaces, vein passages, within your vein passages, if I look into that actually, there can be. So what are the types of things that can happen? So this is mainly because of formation of what we call as eddies. Fine. So the formation of eddies, EDDIES. What are these eddies? Eddies are formed mainly because of the maybe drop in a local drop in the pressure. So the fluid will take a deviation and they try to rotate. So at that particular, so they want to form pockets actually. And then the reason for this eddies, so sometimes there can be a turbulence. What is this turbulence actually? There can be little bit high velocity, because the viscous, maybe there can be more what we call as, see, if you look at the your Reynolds number, the ratio of, so inertia effects comes into picture. The fluid which was supposed to be going at a particular speed, it will take some kind of inertia effect more. It will be moving at very higher speed, or I call it as suddenly turbulence. So say for example, I am driving a vehicle. So all of a sudden I am going to increase my accelerator. I am going to give some kind of a turbulence to it. So same thing can happen to it. So when I do that actually, a sudden increase, sudden change, turbulence actually, there is a loss. That's a loss because it will obstruct the flow. So when I have a turbulence, it becomes a loss for us. And all these things lead to what is called as, there is a little bit of changes in the viscosity. If there's a smooth flow, actually, I could see that a streamlined flow. This will, when there is a turbulence, when there is eddies and all, this will have an impact on your viscosity. So the viscosity will come down, or viscosity changes may happen. So all these things will lead to what is called as internal losses within your guide, within your vein passages. So whatever I show now, this is vein passage, what's happening. Okay, this is one type of losses. Then there are certain things which is mainly because of the surface effect. So one such loss is the screen friction due to surface properties. So your rotor and rotor shaft, between your rotor and rotor shaft are vane surfaces. On the vane surfaces, the fluid that is moving, I can't call it as it's a viscosity is almost zero. It has to have some kind of viscosity because they are all real fluids. They can't be ideal. So whenever there is a real fluid, there is a little bit of friction happening between the movement of the fluid and this corresponding surface. So when such things happen, I will definitely lose some kind of energy, and that energy we call it as skin frictional losses. Okay. Then there is a movement of fluid. Whenever there is a movement of the fluid, we call it as the kinetic energy. The kinetic energy. So what we try to do, the fluid enters at the velocity kinetic energy V1. So we call it as V1 square by 2. So at the exit also, I expect it to be V1 square by 2. That means it is at the inlet, it is at the exit, it has to come to 0. If the complete absorption of your kinetic energy takes place in a turbo machine, I expect my V1 square by 2 at the inlet, I expect it to be completely come to maybe static condition or complete absorption when the V1 square comes to 0. 0, but the fluid exits at some velocity, I call it as V2. That means we can't see a complete conversion of or absorption of kinetic energy, but there is a amount of energy of the fluid, that is kinetic energy, still existing in that particular thing. So that goes as a loss. So that becomes a loss for that particular, maybe a particular stage or a machine, whatever it is. We call that as kinetic energy losses. Fine. Then other two types of losses are there. One is your bearing losses. This is purely mechanical friction. Mechanical friction, it is different from your skin friction. Skin friction is mainly because of the movement of the fluid. Here, this is mainly because of the movement of the two mechanical parts. When two mechanical parts are sliding or rotating, and I could see there is a losses. So that's why whenever we have a turbo machines, we take into consideration the mechanical efficiency, which may be 85%, which may be 90%, whatever it may be. So higher the mechanical efficiency, lower the losses. Then, see, all these things we can't avoid it. The last type of loss we look into is the leakage. See, what is happening actually? The fluid enters at some volume, let me call it as Q1 at the inlet, and it has to go out with Q1. This is at the inlet, it has to go out with the same volume of the fluid at the outlet. So then it is 100% volumetric efficiency. So volume utilization of the volume. But what will happen? This gets reduced to Q2. Means I have a Q1 minus Q2. That is your delta Q. That is volume of the fluid which is lost. Say for example, 1 meter cube per second of fluid enters, 0.98 meter cube per second of fluid goes out. So I am going to lose 0.002 or 0.02, sorry, 0.02 meter cube per second of volume of fluid is lost. So my volumetric efficiency is 100%. So when I they account what we call it as the second law of thermodynamics. So second law of thermodynamics speaks of what is possible, what is impossible. When I speak of impossible things, so our ideal things, I go with the first law of thermodynamics. When I speak of second law of thermodynamics, I speak of, yes, this is not possible. If it is possible, it can't be 100%. It has to be a number less than what is you have calculated or what is desired and all. So if the number is little bit on the lower side, we think of, is it possible to increase that efficiency? All those things. Fine. Now let us try for turbines. So efficiencies for a turbine. Let's consider it. When I speak of it actually, so let me put in the form of a block diagram and try to understand. Okay, I have a block diagram, something like this. So I have the rotor losses in one block diagram, and other block diagram is I do have the frictional losses. I do have mechanical frictional losses. Okay, mechanical frictional losses. See, the fluid enters at some energy. We call this as energy available with the fluid or energy available with the fluid. Energy available with the fluid. So once there is a rotor loss, so this is the energy available that goes to the rotor. So here I can write it as energy available at the rotor. Fine. Then the rotor, after that, what I have actually, there is some kind of a frictional loss, bearing, all those things will come. This is a energy available at the shaft. What it is actually? Let me put a simple sketch actually and try to make you understand. Say I have a, so this is my rotor and this is my shaft. Let me take this as a shaft. Fine. So these are my vanes. I draw some 3 or 4 vanes. Okay. Now, so this is 1. If I call this as 1, okay, this is 1. This is the energy. See, the fluid is entering like this. So the fluid will enter like so. That is the one where the fluid is entering. That is the energy available with the fluid. So there is some kind of a rotor losses, which may be skin friction losses, all the leakage, all the losses comes into picture there. So this is your rotor. So this is your rotor. So after maybe the losses, the rotor losses, all the types of loss, after losing certain amount of energy, there is a certain amount of energy available at the rotor. Fine. Then the rotor will start rotating. So the rotor will start rotating in this direction. Now when the rotor is rotating, the rotor may be coupled to a particular shaft, maybe at some generator, whatever it may be. So what will happen? The rotor is standing on some bearings. So there is a metal to metal contact in the bearings. So there is a reduction in the energy there. So your rotor will see an energy in the form of 3. Okay. If I call this as 2, if I call this as 3. Now, let me call the efficiencies. So the first efficiency is called as between 2 and 1. Let me call that as your hydraulic, or we call it as the blade efficiency, hydraulic or blade efficiency, which is equal to your energy available at the rotor to the energy available with the fluid. 2 comma 2 divided by 1. I call that as hydraulic efficiency. Now second one, that is your mechanical efficiency. Fine. What is this actually? Mechanical efficiency. It is the energy available at the shaft to the energy available at the rotor. So these two efficiencies are very, very important. Two efficiencies are very, very important. Are there any efficiencies other than this? Yes. What are those actually? We have the volumetric efficiency, which is, see, as I told, it has to enter at some volume Q, and there is something loss divided by what? So this can be happening here itself, between 1 and 2 itself. Between 1 and 2. So fluid will have certain amount of energy, and it enters at some energy and it goes out with some energy to the rotor. So between 1 and 2, I can have the volume of, so if you want to represent in terms of discharge, it will be Q, or if I want to measure in terms of mass flow rate, this will be m dot minus delta m dot. So volumetric efficiency, volume of the fluid, or volume of the fluid that has been lost or leaked, is taken care of. Okay. Next, when I try to combine all these things, we call that as your overall or total efficiencies. The overall efficiency. Overall efficiency. So what is it actually? It is the energy available at the shaft to the energy that is supplied. Or I can write this as 3 by 2 into 2 by 1. And added to this, actually, I can bring in your volumetric efficiency, which takes care of the quantity of the fluid that is going in and out of your turbine. So the overall efficiency, it is the energy available at the shaft to the energy that is supplied to the fluid. So in between, the fluid is flowing, the certain amount of quantity of the fluid is going in and out. When I expect there is a loss of fluid, I have to consider the volumetric efficiency. Say if I take, for example, if I take my hydraulic efficiency as 85%, if I take mechanical efficiency of 85%, 0.85 into 0.85 will be also overall efficiency, or your volumetric efficiency is 0.9. So 0.85 into 0.85 into 0.9 will be a number somewhere around 0.7 or so. That means my overall efficiency of that particular machine will always be less than your individual efficiencies. This always you have to keep in your mind when you are trying to calculate for any kind of turbo machines. So for a turbine, it is like this. Now for a compressor, what will happen? If I take for a compressor or a fan, whatever it may be, if I take for a compressor. See, in compressor, what will have actually, I am going to supply the energy to the shaft. That is, energy supplied to the shaft. So this is what I am trying to supply to the your turbo machine. Then what will have actually, I do have the mechanical losses or frictional losses. I can call it as frictional, mechanical or frictional losses. Then what will happen? There is an energy that is available at the rotor. You can call it as energy available at the rotor. Then there are what we call it as the rotor losses. Call that as the rotor losses. Then the energy that is available with the fluid. Energy available at the fluid. Here also I go by the same logic. It is 1, it is if I call it as 2, if I call it as 3. What is my hydraulic efficiency? It is actually, once again, if I go and tell my, what is my hydraulic efficiency? It is the energy available with the fluid to the energy available with the rotor. That is 3 divided by 2. What is your mechanical efficiency? It's once again energy available with the rotor to the energy that is supplied to the shaft. See, whatever we studied there, no, it is completely reverse. In case of a turbine, so the energy what we are trying to do, block diagram going by left or right only. Then what is your, here also volumetric efficiency. In case of your compressor and all, there is always some kind of an addition of the fluid rather than loss. So it is actually Q by Q plus delta Q. There is some kind of an energy. There is some kind of a fluid that's getting added up. Because of somewhere the fluid is accumulated, those just simply get added up. So your volumetric efficiency will be in that particular fashion. Or what will be your overall efficiency? Your overall efficiency will be equal to the energy available with the fluid, that is 3 divided by the energy supplied to the shaft, that is 3 divided by 2 into divided 2, that is by 1 multiplied by your volumetric efficiency. The first one is your hydraulic efficiency, the second one is your mechanical efficiency, and the third one is your volumetric efficiency. So this is about your first law and second law of thermodynamics applied to your turbo machines. When I speak of